Boring History for Sleep, the Victorian Workhouse, An Anatomy of Silence. Hello and welcome back, dear listener, to Boring History for Sleep. This is a sanctuary, a quiet harbor where we do not seek the stormy dramas of the past, but instead we explore its deep, still waters. We examine the intricate grain of history's wood, the subtle weave of its tapestry, not for excitement, but for the profound sense of calm that comes from understanding the quiet, meticulous, and often monotonous details of a world long gone. Tonight, we embark on a journey into a uniquely structured world. A world built not for joy, nor for community, nor for comfort, but for a single stark purpose: deterrence. We are traveling back to the heart of the 19th century, to the thick, coal-choked air of London, to step through the imposing, iron-studded gates of a Victorian workhouse. This is not a tale of Gothic horror, though its shadows are long. It is a story of bureaucracy, of social engineering, of ledgers and legislation, and of the human spirit navigating a landscape of calculated, institutionalized discomfort. We will attune our ears to the specific somber acoustics of this place: the jarring clang of the wake-up bell, the soft shuffling tread of countless feet on stone flags, the hollow silence of a crowded room where speech is forbidden. We will feel the abrasive texture of coarse wool against skin and taste the thin, utilitarian blandness of gruel. We will seek to understand the peculiar, almost mathematical philosophy that governed every brick, every rule, every moment of existence within these walls. It is, above all, a story of silence, of separation, and of time's slow, granular, and grinding passage. So now, wherever you are, find your most comfortable position. Let the concerns of the present day, the lists and the worries, simply drift away like smoke on a still evening. There is nothing for you to do now but listen. Listen to the sound of the rain perhaps falling gently outside your window, a soft, natural rhythm against the glass. And listen to the sound of my voice, a steady, calm guide into the past. Allow yourself to begin to relax, to unwind, to drift away from the present and into the quiet, stark reality of this historical chapter. Let us begin not with an overview, but with an immersion. Imagine yourself not as a visitor to this place, not as a historian studying its blueprints, but as a new inmate. Your induction into this world is not marked by a formal greeting, but by a sound. The first sensation is auditory, the jarring, insistent, metallic clamor of the wake-up bell. It is not a pleasant chime, but a harsh, percussive shock that cuts through the last vestiges of sleep, a sound designed to provoke an immediate, autonomic response. It is wielded, perhaps, by a man named Mr. Arthur Briggs, a master of the workhouse, a figure for whom the concepts of compassion and flexibility are not merely absent, but are considered active impediments to the efficient operation of the institution. His face, we can imagine, is a permanent monument to stern disapproval, his eyes missing nothing, his voice rarely raised above a low, commanding register that is somehow more frightening than a shout. This bell echoes through the long, high-ceilinged dormitory, a cavernous space where the cold seems to seep from the very stone walls. The air is frigid, carrying a complex and unpleasant aroma. The sharp, clean scent of carbolic disinfectant, the damp, earthy smell of old mortar, and the faint, unmistakably sour tang of many human bodies living in unavoidably close confinement. The room is filled with rows of simple iron bedsteads, each identical, each bearing a thin, lumpy, straw-stuffed mattress known as a palliasse, and a single rough, gray wool blanket that carries within its fibers the ingrained ghosts of its previous occupants, a scent of despair, of dust, and of the lye soap used to wash it. There is no moment to linger, to stretch, to slowly welcome the day. The rules printed and posted on the walls are absolute. You rise, a single motion among dozens of other gray-clad figures, in the bleak, pre-dawn gloom that filters through the high, barred windows. The chill air raises goosebumps on your skin. You pull on your uniform garment of the coarsest hodden gray, its weave so harsh and unforgiving, it seems to scour the skin with every movement. It is a deliberately awful uniform. Its purpose is not to clothe, but to brand. It is meant to efface your former identity, to strip you of your individuality, and to mark you irrevocably, visually, to yourself and to the world, as a pauper, a recipient of the parish's reluctant charity. Your entire existence within these walls is now orchestrated by the bell. It is the conductor of this grim symphony. It summons you to meals, to labor, to prayers, to exercise, and finally, back to sleep. There is no autonomy, no choice, only a Pavlovian response. You shuffle, in a mute and orderly line, to the vast dining hall. The room is so large, so high-vaulted, that it possesses its own acoustics. It amplifies every minor sound, the scrape of a wooden bowl on a table, the slow slurp of gruel, a stifled cough into a hollow, ghostly echo that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere. Your sustenance is gruel. This is not the wholesome porridge of a Scottish breakfast. It is a thin, pallid, watery concoction of oatmeal and water, served tepid and utterly devoid of flavor or nourishment. It is the bare minimum caloric fuel required to power your body for the labor ahead, designed to sustain life, but never to provide pleasure or satisfaction. You eat it with a worn, splintered wooden spoon, and soon the taste of the old, waterlogged wood becomes an inextricable part of the meal itself, a constant sensory reminder of the institution's meager provision. Then the bell sounds again, and the labor commences. The tasks are chosen not for their economic value or for the development of skills, but for their mind-numbing monotony and their deliberate pointlessness. For the men, the most common task is oakum picking. You are given a hank of old, tar-saturated rope, salvaged from ships, its fibers hardened by salt and sun to the consistency of iron. Your duty is to sit upon a backless wooden bench for hours on end, and with aching, increasingly raw fingers, painstakingly unravel the stubborn, glued-together strands. The task is Sisyphean. The pungent, black tar stains your skin indelibly, lodges deep under your broken and cracked nails, and leaves a resinous, smoky smell on your hands that no amount of scrubbing with the coarse soap provided can remove. The fruit of this painful, tedious toil, a small pile of fluffy, separated hemp, would be sold for a pittance to shipyards for caulking between the planks of vessels. Thus, your pointless effort becomes a minuscule, anonymous cog in the vast, unseen machine of the British Empire, a bitter irony that would be entirely lost on those performing the task. For the women, the duty often lies in the laundry or the kitchen. The laundry is a Hadean realm of oppressive, moist heat. The air is thick with swirling steam that condenses on the cold walls and the acrid, choking reek of lye soap. Your hands and forearms are perpetually submerged in scalding, soapy water, becoming red, raw, and agonizingly chapped. You scrub an endless, seemingly self-replenishing mountain of coarse linens and rough workhouse uniforms on a ribbed washboard, the repetitive, grating motion etching a deep, dull ache into your shoulders, back, and spine. a pain that settles in by mid-morning and becomes a constant throbbing companion for the rest of the day. In the kitchen, the work might involve scrubbing immense cast-iron pots, peeling mountains of potatoes, or endlessly stirring vast vats of the same bland gruel. The work is hot, strenuous, and performed under the unsmiling supervision of the matron, a woman as formidable in her domain as the master is in his. And throughout all of this, there is one rule more heavily enforced than any other: the rule of silence. Conversation is utterly forbidden. This law, vigilantly enforced by the hawk-eyed master, matron, and their network of paid monitors, is perhaps the most profound and psychological of the punishments. It annihilates the small, vital consolations of human camaraderie, a shared grievance, a whispered word of encouragement, a fleeting joke to break the monotony. Your own thoughts become your prison within a prison, circling endlessly in the stifling, heavy quiet, a silent scream echoing in perfect time with a monotonous asterisk pick. Pick, pick of oakum, or the scrub, scrub, scrub asterisk on the washboard. The only sounds are these, punctuated by the occasional sigh, eye cough, or the distant, authoritative footsteps of authority. Finally, the bell's clangor signals a reprieve. The work period ends. You line up. You are counted, a number in Mr. Briggs' heavy, leather-bound ledger. You are marched away to the next scheduled activity. Your life has been reduced to a series of silent processions, impersonal head counts, and regimented movements from one cheerless space to another. The rhythm of the workhouse is not a natural, human rhythm. It is an artificial, imposed metronome, designed to be so soul-crushing in its monotony, so utterly bleak and joyless, that only the most utterly desperate, those on the very precipice of starvation, would ever voluntarily seek its shelter. It is a rhythm of submission, a cadence so heavy and repetitive that it could, in its sheer, numbing weight, lull you into a state of vacant stupefaction. A rhythm engineered to break the will, but which now for us serves only to quiet the mind, to slow the pulse, to guide us toward rest. Yet, within this stark, impersonal system, there pulsed hundreds of silent, individual human tragedies. The workhouse was not populated by caricatures of vice or laziness, as the popular newspapers of the day might have claimed. Its wards were filled with ordinary people, the elderly, the sick, the orphaned, the unemployed for whom the world had, brick by brick, circumstance by circumstance, constructed an inescapable trap. To understand the workhouse, we must understand how one arrived there. It was rarely a single, catastrophic plunge from grace. More often, it was a gradual, almost imperceptible slope of mundane misfortunes, a quiet unraveling of the fragile threads that hold a life together. Let us, with gentle reverence, trace the path of one such soul, not a figure of legend or history, but a woman we might call Eleanor Vance. Once, not so long ago, she had been a skilled and respected bookbinder. Her world was one of quiet intellect and precise craftsmanship. Her hands, though work-worn, were capable of the most exquisite precision, of restoring priceless leather-bound volumes with near-invisible stitches, of delicately reapplying gold leaf to faded spines. Her small rented room was adorned with a single shelf of rescued, damaged books she had been unable to part with, each one a beloved friend. She had a canary in a small cage by the window that sang every morning at first light. She was a woman of pride, of routine, of small, hard-won comforts. Her descent began not with a bang, but with a series of small, devastating whispers. A printing house where she found her most regular work modernized replacing the gentle art of hand binding with the relentless, clattering efficiency of new machinery. The skilled commissions grew sporadic, then ceased entirely. The world, it seemed, no longer had need for her particular talents. Her unraveling was a quiet, desperate process. First went the small luxuries, the slightly better tea, the occasional pat of butter. Then came the sale of her beloved books, one by one, to a disinterested pawnbroker who saw not their content, but only their weight and condition. Each sale was a small death. The money they brought was never enough. Then came the move from her quiet room with its good light to a dank, airless cellar lodging that smelled perpetually of earth and decay. The pride that had been her anchor now became a burden. It prevented her from begging, from openly admitting her struggle, until the gnawing, physical emptiness in her stomach finally overcame it. She would stand in line at the parish for a bowl of soup, her eyes fixed on the ground, burning with shame. The final formal step into the system was one of cold bureaucracy. Destitute, shivering in a threadbare coat, she was forced to present herself before the local boardians. This meant submitting to a humiliating interrogation. Her life struggles, her poor decisions, her simple bad luck, all laid bare before a panel of well-fed, impatient, and often deeply unsympathetic men. It meant signing forms in triplicate, her elegant, practiced penmanship, a testament to her former trade, now at cruel odds with the humiliating declarations of poverty she was forced to inscribe. The board's guiding principle, their North Star, was the doctrine of less eligibility. This was the iron law upon which the entire new Poor Law of 1834 was built. It decreed that the condition of the pauper inside the workhouse must be less eligible, less desirable, less comfortable than the condition of the poorest independent laborer outside its walls. The workhouse must be a deterrent so powerful that only the utterly helpless would enter it. Therefore, the answer to her plea was never direct aid, never outdoor relief that might allow her to maintain a shred of dignity in her own home. The answer was a ticket of admission, a one-way passage into the system. Her induction was a ritual of erasure, designed to strip away the last remnants of her identity. Her own clothes, the last vestige of her former self, were taken from her, inspected, and stored away in a bag, with no guarantee she would ever see them again. She was subjected to a clinical, degrading scrub down in a cold communal bath, her hair roughly inspected for vermin. She was issued the rough, shapeless, hodden gray uniform. She was assigned to a ward, to a specific bed, to a work detail in the laundry. Her name, Eleanor, a name given to her by her mother, was replaced by a number entered into a ledger. Her history, her skill with leather and gold leaf, her quiet love for the written word, the memory of her canary song all, are rendered null and void within these walls. She was now an inmate, a unit of poverty to be managed, fed, and sent to work. Her story was one of quiet, incremental defeat, a masterpiece of tragedy painted not with bold, dramatic strokes, but with the faint, fading lines of missed opportunities, economic shifts, and silent, unacknowledged despair. The workhouse was more than just a building. It was a physical manifesto, a three-dimensional expression of a harsh social philosophy. Every brick laid, every corridor planned, every rule enforced was a sentence in a cruel ideological text. Its very design was governed by the separate system, a doctrine not of redemption or rehabilitation, but of absolute, silent isolation. To understand its power, we must envision its layout not as a prison, though the similarities were many, but as a panopticon of loneliness, a machine for the production of solitude. At its heart lay the administrative nucleus, the master's house, from which he and the matron could observe and control the entire institution. Emanating from this core were wings and wards, each meticulously engineered to segregate a specific class of inmate. Men were separated from women, the aged and infirm from the able-bodied. Children were separated from all adults, including their own parents. This was the first and most crucial layer of the system, designed to prevent what the officials and social theorists of the day termed moral contamination. The belief was that paupers were a corrupting influence on one another, that idleness and vice were contagious diseases that would spread in close quarters. The only cure was absolute quarantine. Only in profound, uninterrupted isolation, the theory went, could the pauper be compelled to reflect on the errors that led them here and be incentivized to seek a better path out. Let us walk slowly, mentally, through this coldly constructed reality. The exercise yards were not meant for recreation or enjoyment. They were small, stone-flagged pens, enclosed by high, spiked walls. They were designed to sever all sight lines and any sense of community. If you were in one yard, you could not see into the next. You could only see the patch of often gray London sky above and the rough, weeping brick walls around you. You might hear the faint, muffled sounds from adjacent yards, a sigh, the drag of a foot, a cough, but you would see no one. Your solitude was enforced, not just by rules, but by architecture itself. You would walk in slow, silent circles, your own thoughts, your only companion. The sleeping cells, for they were little more than that, were studies in stark austerity. An iron cot that groaned under the slightest weight, a small, locked cupboard for meager permitted effects, a single, mean blanket. The heavy wooden doors, fitted with a small, barred observation slit, sealed you into your solitude each night. In the darkness, the only symphony was one of absence and distant sound, the distant, ragged breathing of unseen others in cells down the corridor, the skittering of a rat in the wainscoting, and the rhythmic echoing tread of the night watchman making his rounds, his large ring of iron keys, jangling a soft metallic lullaby that marked the passage of the long, dark, lonely hours. Even the chapel, the one place where inmates were gathered together, was ingeniously designed to perpetuate this division. The pews were not benches, but high-sided wooden stalls, like cattle pens or academic examination carols, isolating each occupant into a private, box-like space. You could see the minister at his distant pulpit, a somber figure delivering a homily on penitence, hard work, and gratitude, but you could not see your neighbor. You could hear the sermon and the hymns, but you could not share a glance of understanding, a roll of the eyes, or a whisper of solace. It was collective worship engineered to make you feel profoundly, inescapably, and utterly alone, even in a crowd. The effect of this system, in practice, was rarely the moral improvement its designers hoped for. Instead, it was a slow, psychological disintegration, a process known as institutionalization. A human mind, starved of social nourishment, of novelty, of simple kindness and conversation, turns in upon itself. The endless, identical days, each a perfect mirror of the last, blurred into a featureless, gray expanse without landmarks. The world beyond the high, spiked gates began to feel like a half-remembered dream from someone else's life. The harsh, predictable, and monotonous rhythm of the workhouse became the only tangible reality. The separate system aimed to make the interior so unbearably lonely and austere that the exterior, despite its poverty and struggle, would seem a paradise by comparison. But for many, especially the old, the sick, and the broken-hearted. It simply made the outside world seem an impossible, fading memory. It was a monument to a philosophy of silent, monotonous alienation, a powerful and terrifying tool of social control. Far removed from the echoing halls, the silent yards, and the cold dormitories, the real machinery of the workhouse operated in a different contrasting realm, the boardroom. This was a space of polished mahogany, green leather blotters, silver inkwells, and the faint, sweet aroma of port wine and cigar smoke. Here, in this club-like atmosphere, the Board of Guardians convened its weekly meetings. It is crucial to understand that these men were not the cartoonish, mustache-twirling villains of melodrama. They were, by and large, pillars of their local community. Prosperous merchants, successful barristers, wealthy landowners, men of property, order, and pronounced opinion. They saw themselves as stewards of public funds and guardians of public morality. The chairman, perhaps a man named Sir Reginald Thorne, likely believed sincerely that poverty was, in most cases, a direct result of a personal failure of character, a lack of thrift, sobriety, or industry. The poor were, to him and many of his peers, an unfortunate but necessary abstraction in the grand, impersonal equation of a well-ordered society. Their language was not the language of human suffering. It was the language of finance, of columns of figures, balance sheets, and fiscal responsibility. They viewed the workhouse not as an assemblage of human beings with stories and sorrows, but as a complex municipal utility, a factory for the till, processing of poverty to be run with maximum efficiency and minimum expense. The principle of less eligibility was, to their minds, a sound economic deterrent, a necessary evil to protect the public purse and encourage independence. We can imagine the scene of their weekly meeting. Sir Reginald taps his mahogany gavel with soft, unquestioned authority. The first order of business is always provisions. The master of the workhouse, Mr. Briggs, stands to present his accounts for the previous week. What follows is a protracted, dry, and deeply tedious discussion about the fluctuating price of mutton shanks for the infirmary diet. Could a cheaper cut of meat be procured from a different supplier without technically violating the official dietary guidelines set by the Poor Law Commission in London? The potential savings of 4 shillings and 6pence per week are deemed worthy of a subcommittee inquiry. The well-being of the infirm is not the subject. The shillings and pence are. Next, the medical officer, a harried local doctor, delivers his report in a dispassionate clinical drone. He notes an outbreak of chilblains in the elderly ward due to the persistent damp and requests funds for additional tallow candles to provide a modicum of heat. He might mention a consumptive cough spreading among the children. The guardians listen, nod, and approve the expenditure for tallow, but they balk at the cost of a soothing zinc ointment for the chilblains, debating at length whether a more economical substitute, like rendered goose fat, could be found. The doctor's medical advice is weighed against the cost of goose fat. Then arrives the most human part of their agenda, the review of applications for outdoor relief. Each case is a paper dossier, a name, a summarized tragedy read aloud by the clerk in a bland, uninflected monotone. Case number 22. Eleanor Vance, former bookbinder. No family. Deemed able-bodied though slight of frame. Indigent. Parish officer recommends relief in kind. 1 loaf of bread, 3 pounds of potatoes per week. The guardians now deliberate. Is her situation thoroughly documented and verified? Has the parish officer made absolutely certain there are and no relatives who could take her in? Wouldn't offering her external support create a pernicious precedent, encouraging indolence and false claims in others? Would it not be more fiscally responsible and better for the reinforcement of her character and the principle of less eligibility to offer relief inside the house? The debate orbits entirely around the axis of cost, precedent, and social doctrine. The concept of empathy, of simple human kindness, does not enter the calculus. It is not part of the equation they have been tasked to solve. A decision is rendered. Outdoor relief is denied. A ticket of admission to the workhouse is issued in its stead. Sir Reginald makes a note to remind the relieving officer to be more stringent in his future recommendations. The meeting drones on for 2 more hours. There is scrutiny of the coal consumption quotas for the winter months. They review tenders from local firms for the repair of a crumbling boundary wall. They discuss a lengthy, densely worded directive from the Central Poor Law Commission in London regarding the precise accounting of burial fees for deceased inmates. It is all profoundly dry, meticulous, and completely divorced from the human reality it controls. The anguish of Eleanor Vance, the chilblains of the elderly, the cough of the children, these are not miseries to be alleviated, but abstractions, variables, line items in a ledger. The objective is not cruelty, but a cold, sterile, and profoundly tedious efficiency. The rhythm of the boardroom, the soft tap of the gavel, the rustle of minute papers, the measured ticking of the long-case clock in the corner, is a slow bureaucratic tempo that dictates the harsh metallic rhythm of the workhouse bell far below. It is the cadence of dispassionate administration, a world where human fates are decided with the same detached interest as one might order a new supply of blotting paper or ink. And so, dear listener, we gradually depart from that meticulously ordered, yet profoundly disordered world. We allow the specter of the ledger, the stark boardroom, the silent, segregated yards, and the endless, monotonous labor to dissolve, to fade, to recede into the welcoming, soft darkness of your own room. You are here, now, in the comfort and safety of your own present, in your own sanctuary. This is a place of warmth, of security, of soft fabrics, and of absolute autonomy. The workhouse is a relic, its gates long since sealed by history, its rules holding no sway in this time, in this place. The only rhythm that holds any power now is the gentle, natural rhythm of your own breathing, in and out, deep and calm, in and out. The past, for all its complexity and its sorrows, is a story that has been told. It is now concluded. It makes no demands on you this night. It has no claim on your peace. Any sense of constraint you carried from your day, any weight upon your shoulders, any feeling of being hemmed in by routine or expectation can be consciously released. They can be shed like a heavy, scratchy, hodden gray uniform that you are now free to remove, to fold away, and to never, ever don again. Thank you for allowing me to guide you on this detailed, quiet journey through the somber history of the Victorian workhouse. Let the immense, quiet stillness of that institution, the very silence it used as a weapon, now wash over you as a profound and deep sense of peace. Let your mind be as tranquil, as serene, and as unburdened as you need it to be. Let your body feel heavy, relaxed, completely and utterly at ease, supported by the comfort of your own bed. There is only the sound of your breathing, in and out. There is only the feeling of relaxation, spreading from the tips of your toes to the top of your head. There is only the gentle embrace of sleep waiting to welcome you. Just breathe in and breathe out. And as you breathe, permit yourself to drift deeper and deeper down through the layers of wakefulness into a calm, a restful, a utterly peaceful and free sleep